So hello everyone, welcome to the first ecosystem session. I've got the Hum Hive team here with me today. I'm really excited to be hearing about their progress. Guys, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Thanks, David. Nice to see you. My name is Colin. I'm checking in from traditional Lummi territory just north of Seattle. I have been on the Hum Hive team now for about a year, and I do some of the general design and human experience work.
Hey guys, I'm Nick Haslam. I'm the founder of Hum Hive. I'm over in Mount Warning and Cabarita. Depending on who you talk to, it's either Bundjalung country or Narkwal or Githabul. I'm really excited to be here. And that's me.
I'm David. I have been working with and around HolyChain for a while, and I've helping develop HolyChain Core and working with the Hum Hive to bring everything that Hum's doing to HolyChain and vice versa.
Hey there, my name is Pedro Roman. I'm based from the Dominican Republic, and I've been performing the role as a full stack front-end developer. And it's been a really long journey for all of us, but I'm really happy to share what we have to show to everyone in the HoloChain community. So yeah, please look forward to it.
Super, thanks so much guys. And I'm David Atkinson. I'm the commercial director of Holo and HoloChain. And I'm really excited and real honored that you guys are here for this first session today. I remember Nick meeting you for the first time, maybe even a couple of years ago, and having a long walk around the park and really seeing how our different backgrounds connected and getting a huge sense of where you're coming from, where you've been in life and where you're coming from. So I'm looking forward to just tapping into a little bit of that today, as well as seeing a demo of what you've been building and hearing a little bit more. So maybe Colin, you can start by telling us just a little bit about what the Hum Hive app is and does.
Sure. So we like to call the Hum Hive app a radically adaptable way to create and share stories and media. And so what we mean by that is beyond a platform, it's more like an ecosystem of tools or protocol that allows you to create and share however you want digitally. We like to call the app itself a blank canvas that can actually be customized to fit people's particular needs for sharing or creating stories. And as a general design principle, we're super reverent of wisdom cultures and oral traditions and how stories and information have been shared and stewarded for thousands and thousands of years in ways that much predated the internet or information age. And maybe Nick, you want to speak to that a little more?
Yeah, sure. I can jump into that a little bit. I was doing a lot of traveling around Egypt and sacred sites, Mexico and Australia as well. Doing a lot of rites of passage, initiations, spending a lot of time with different elders and wisdom keepers. And what we've seen through a lot of these different countries and cultures is that a lot of the language has been lost, a lot of this information has been lost. And so the intention was really how can we live in a way which is aligned with natural law and oral wisdom, and how can we share and store this information and stories and wisdom in a way that gives reverence and respect, but doesn't bring in our own ideologies and belief systems and get in the way. So like, how can we allow these people to share their knowledge and larger than that, it's kind of like a foundational pattern for more, if you want to get into the more business side of things, and journalism, media in general, sharing information, that the way in which these stories are shared in these indigenous cultures really lays the platform for that to be done in a more harmonious way. And so that's really been the inspiration, is how we can live in harmony with these teachings and also bring something through into the technology world that's that kind of brings these natural patterns through.
Yeah, it's really close to my heart, having had half a decade living in Central Australia and spending a lot of time in remote communities. Hearing what you're up to every time I hear that story, I can feel my heart opening, and just imagining the possibilities of what people can be doing on the platform. So just thank you firstly for that. What I'd love to know a little bit as we're with belief systems is, like, what was the belief system inside yourself that told you guys, in terms of the team, and I guess specifically Nick, as you were bringing this to life, like, what was this belief system that says I need to do this? I'm the person that needs to make this happen.
It was really through like a whole lot of self-inquiry, through a lot of initiation and rites of passage, which I feel has been lost, especially for men in the world. And then also kind of wanting to bring that into the lives of a lot of other people. And so that's why we've kind of created this way in which has a built-in resiliency for backup of information, has the ability to share information peer-to-peer to one person or globally. And so, and when you start getting into unenclosable carriers and agent centricity, it allows for people to share the information on their own terms in the way that they want. For me, what I've learned is that it really comes down to the natural law and all this oral wisdom. And so the more that can be transmitted, not only through a clear communication vessel, but also in the design patterns that we use, I feel like that'll flow through into all these other layers, and it'll just magnify, and it'll kind of this kind of more natural way, of these more ancient ways of living and wisdom will kind of help guide us to work with technology in a more harmonious way.
Something, David A., that I really love is this concept of beyond restoration, it's restoration. So what are the ways that the stories or narratives that have been around forever have been subsumed or not revered or honored in a way where people don't actually know them anymore? So ideally with Hum Hive and this ability or protocol that allows people to share what they want to share, not necessarily beholden to singular platforms, terms and conditions. So this idea that I can create content, it can be stored in the Hum Hive app, and then I can have the freedom to choose where I share it. We're hoping to see the pattern where stories and alternative narratives can live that aren't, again, beholden to singular platforms. And this, we like to talk about the freedom to steward stories, and this idea that we can go beyond control and ownership of data, of privacy, by actually bringing through these patterns that allow more autonomy and agency to choose where their stories are shared virtually and not.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I could not have expected a more beautiful response to that. One of the things I really, Colin, just as you were explaining right at the end there, I really resonated with was, again, some of my experiences of watching these ancient stories disappear. And I can't pretend for a second that I really understood or understand what's going on. That was probably the first thing actually I learned living in the desert, is that whatever I think I know, I may as well just forget about. I'm just a blip, just a moment that's passing, and everything that I think I'm doing, saying, understanding is nothing more. What I did notice was how much the environment was changing. And I guess I started coming to some kind of belief that as the environment was changing, the stories were changing, or the ability to communicate the stories were changing. And so what I'm noticing about what you guys are describing is creating a new possibility through also an environment that hasn't ever been able to be created before. And so we can see what's possible for people as a new environment emerges. And so on that, I think I'd love to see David. I believe you've got or David M. You've got something to show us. Oh, actually, sorry, David. I have to jump in 1 second. I forgot myself. For everyone here, I think one of the things that we really, one of my main intentions in creating this is to honor those. In one way, you guys are honoring the lineage of stories. I like to honor those who've been thinking about Holochain before it existed, or came to the first hackathon, or those who've been in this ecosystem for a period of time. And what I've appreciated about HumHive and the team here is the amount of commitment, investment in every form that has been made to make this happen. I think in terms of Holochain, you know, that Nick, you and the team were at probably the first like 5 or 6 hackathons. You know, you've been developing on the platform at many iterations. Platform. You've been developing on the framework in many versions, many iterations, and you've also been helping steward this ecosystem. So I'd really like to honor and acknowledge that as we move into now seeing some of what's happened from these years of work.
Yeah, I think these stories remind myself to dig deeper into, you know, my own lineage's stories. And I think this beautiful idea that, you know, there are stories that existed far beyond and are far more predominant than maybe what we see on a lot of different media platforms today. And the more that we can revere and listen, you know, how do we cultivate deep listening in these platforms opposed to maybe bombardment of media or of clicks or advertisements? You know, I think we're going to see that shift away, especially in these more peer-to-peer ecosystems, the more agent-centric technologies, the more community-centric solutions, let's call them. So I think that's, you know, something that I encourage everyone to take away. It's like, what are the stories that have existed in, you know, our own families, our own communities, the own land that are around us? And I think the more that we can help cultivate and remember and revere those stories, you know, beautiful things happen.
I mean, I could go down such a rabbit hole here. So, David, you've been waiting super patiently. Before I even open my mouth again, over to you to show us.
Well, I think Pedro's going to show us the demo. I think we're all going to actually show us
gotcha.
the demo, yeah.
Okay, Pedro's going to show us the demo. Awesome.
Yeah.
So basically, the context for that is that, like you were saying, we've been doing this for a while, and there is, we've kind of been moving with the evolution, or like Hum itself has been moving with the evolution of Holochain. And the sort of the earlier versions, it was kind of like the whole thing was just like one big Holochain app. And then what we've been getting a bit more of a sophisticated understanding of what we need to do, what we've been talking to, partly for law reasons, partly for LAW, like legal reasons as well, the LORE, and then also partly for the way that we want to keep moving this forward as Holo and Holochain itself progresses. So we've set up a relatively modular system. So what we want to show is that modular approach to what we're doing, and actually it's now turning into several different places where Holochain and Holo can plug in to provide different parts of the overall whole. Yeah,
amazing.
It's actually the other guys doing the demo. So,
all right, Pedro, let's. Do you like to share your screen? How would you like to do this?
Yeah, just gives me, you actually gave me a screen share permission. So yeah, I can just share my screen.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So, wait 1 second. So yeah, I'm going to be giving, you know, like the walkthrough to our demo. And just to know, for starters, like I just open the app. So then, you know, like we kind of start playing right away. So this is going to be like the first screen of your first home experience. Everyone has already given like an idea of what Home Hive actually is. And if you actually ask me, like, a few years ago, like things would be like they are today, like I wouldn't have believed it. Like, like we have evolved just like Holochain has. And yeah, like all these changes, all this modularity, and the things that you might see now are like things that, like in my mind, they were like, like part of what I was envisioning. But yeah, like the way that things are shaping up and how everything is matching, like our visions and the goals that we always, like the things that we really wanted to do, like, like the amount of happiness that I have, today is like, yeah, I can measure it by any number. So yeah, like I'm going for the first spring now. And that image at the right side is going to be a really important concept that I would like you, like to look at it and memorize it, because it's going to be really important later on. But as you can see, a hive by its core is somewhere like where you can store and safe keep your content. But your hive actually is something that you own, and it's up to you to decide like what kind of functionality you want your hive to perform. So yeah, like we are not asking or forcing anyone to use what, like what we want you to use. You can shape your experience the way that you want. So yeah, like for now, let's start by naming the hive. So like,
And by default, everything
yep,
within your Hive is stored offline first.
yeah,
So this is,
exactly.
again, mirroring this agent-centric pattern. You have agency over where your content lives by default. So it's not going to any server. Hive doesn't have any server out of the gate. Everything you do, create, share is based locally on your device to start.
Correct. So yep, let's start then now by naming my first hive. I'm going to be naming it for now the Holo Hive 2020. Just, like in commemoration for this session today. Yep, let's save the name of my hive. And just as quickly, it was created. This is actually really something that happens really quick, because it's actually happening in your device, just like Colin mentioned. Everything is, like offline first. And yeah, now that we have created our hive, we can go around and customize it by installing home connections. Just like I mentioned, Hive by themselves won't provide any functionality out of the box, because Hive were designed so that we could extend them. So with things that you need, that is what we call the home connections. And you can think of home connections as plugins, just like WordPress, Ghost, but everything that we do is actually integrated locally in your device. So yeah, now that we have created our Hive, let's start by adding connections. So on this screen, you can see 6 connections that we're going to be talking about them today. But yeah, we are going to be demoing so that you can understand how everything looks like. But this is like what we call the Home Hive app blank canvas. And there is nothing pre-installed, and you have the freedom to choose exactly, like what you want to include in your application. And for now, let's start, for example, like testing our shell, what we call the home publisher. So if I go here and let me minimize this thing on my screen, like I can over here pretty much enable the home publisher into the application. Otherwise, it won't be something that you can use. But if I go to enable it, it's going to become like, yeah, active in my application. I am available on the sidebar. It's important to mention that for today's session, the home publisher was pre-installed in the application, but everything else is something that you actually have to download, like you have to download it somewhere into your device. And that is going to be something that is going to be a normal thing for everyone else. So yeah, let's go to the home publisher. And yeah, over here you can see something that is a standard on, yeah, writing stuff. As we come, like Nick hasn't mentioned our, like about our background working in the affiliate business. And we actually have a lot of experience working with editorials and authors. So we bring that experience with the publishing. And that is, like what we are using to power up the logic on the home publisher. So like for now, let's start by creating a new story. So for my new story, like I can call it in the way that I want. So I call it Holo. And this is something that we also have, we call our blocks. So like we use a block design approach in order to add new content. You know, like if you want to add anything, it can be, yeah, hidden quotes, images, and anything. But we did it this way so that, you know, we don't blow the screen with all sort of things that you might, that, you know, like might kind of pollute the experience that you're using. So for now, let's start with adding something. This is a small test. Then I could keep doing the same in that context. Like I can add like 1 heading, 2 heading, and I'm actually doing this one because, yeah, like I can do like this way. And I also, wait, yeah, I could do like this way and start adding like even more stuff to the heading. Yeah, it wasn't the proper wording that I should have used in the heading because these are not heading. But yeah, like yeah, if I wanted, I could just go right away and add another one. This will be like a medium one. So here we have like a medium sort of heading. And yeah, we pretty much can start keep adding stuff. Like I can add quotes. You know, something nice is actually happening here. And I could pretty much keep writing everything here. But yeah, like you know, like the goal over here and the experience that we're giving is that you have a distraction-free writing. You can pretty much, yeah, like have all your document. And then once you decide, like, if you're done with it, you can either save it as a draft so that you can keep working with it later, or you can, you know, like mark as something that is published so that you know that you're already done with it. So like for now, I'm going to save it as a draft because I actually have like bigger plans for that later on. But now let me expand this, you know, like the sidebar at the left. And I also would like to look at the import content. So yeah, like over here, we have one import that we already built. This is the medium.com import. Essentially what we can do with it is like, if you don't want, you know, like if you already had a publisher and you are using Medium, like you can easily export all your stuff from Medium and import the zip file that they provide to you and have all your content over here organized in the way that you had it on medium.com. So yeah, all your draft and published content is going to reflect the same way that is over here. And taking that in consideration, like something that is important to highlight is the home publisher is going to be open source. So yeah, like everything that you are seeing here is something that you can customize. And it's important to mention because even our blogs, you know, it's going to be all part of it. So yeah, people will be able to create new blogs and new functionality, and they can even create their own importer. So if other projects are working with their own CMSs or, you know, like publishing, you know, like publishing editors, like they can easily build importers so that they can bring all their content to the home publisher. And then the home publisher is going to store everything safely in your Hive. So yeah, like that was something quick that I wanted to show, you know, like in terms of the home publisher. I'm going to show something next. I mean, like actually what this screen is about, but I guess that's for now. I can actually do it. Like this is the review screen, just, you know, like just before making your document as something that is already done with it. And what is important here is like, this is like metadata that you can use, you know, for something else. I'm going to, you know, like I might show you where that metadata might go at. But for now, the one that I want you to look at is like this one over here. And this is a permission. So now everything that I'm writing is actually like being considered as something private. So like if we were to use another connection that were relying on this content, it will understand that this is something that we will want to keep private, or something that, you know, like we could make it public so that anyone could read it. But how this is interpreted, like it depends on the connection and how they understand like what they're going to be doing with it. But knowing that in the context, like I actually would like to then introduce what we call the Keybase for themes. Just before that, like Colin, do you have anything to say, or would you like to say something about Keybase?
Sure. Well, for one, just want to touch on that import function. So again, going
Yeah.
back to the concept of hives, and that hives is this repository for you to safely store and for all your stories and media to live in a focal point. So opposed to you having to be on Medium or other platforms that work for you, other services, the idea is that your hive is that focal point from which you can publish to wherever you want. And so this idea just creating an import function for Medium means we can do others too, right? Depending on where your content is living in the virtual realm, you can actually bring it down to your hive, or you can create from your hive and then you can share out. So you're not having to go into all these different platforms to manage your content. You can actually have the hive right there. And so can you go back to Keybase too, please, Pedro?
Yeah.
So we like Keybase for a few different reasons. It in itself is a really cool suite of services. It's encrypted file storage, which is what we're primarily using it for. Of course, there's chat on there, which we're not really integrating yet. But Keybase today allows us to encrypt or backup and encrypt content. So you can have a encrypted backup. And then it also allows us to publish publicly using a CNAME and text service that they use. So you can actually display public content on a domain, and we'll show another connection. We're using Gatsby, which is a really cool framework for building modern websites. And eventually we're creating the pattern for people to be able to share encrypted content and paywall that content with specific groups of people or paying subscribers. So if you're a newsletter creator, or you run a subscription blog, or you want to share with maybe family and friends, or a group of people who you only want them to see that content or those stories, then you can do that in a really easy way with Keybase. So Pedro, if you could you please sync what you just created with Keybase?
I just have
Yep.
one more thing to say about Keybase,
Please.
which is that I'm not sure if everyone watching this has actually used Keybase or knows what it's about, but primarily it's an identity solution. So it basically ties your different social media identities that you might have, like Facebook and Twitter, and it attaches those to cryptographic proofs. Alongside the encryption schemes, it also has signature and key management schemes. So in the future, we'll obviously be using the more Holo provided identity solutions, but at the moment this is basically as good as you can get for things that are broadly in mass adoption, and it's just an app that gets installed, and then people start verifying each other through a web of trust, and then their keys start getting attached to their like their Twitter accounts and Reddit and everything else.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, and I guess that now I'm going to start with the syncing process. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to make it to explain something what is going on over here. So as you might see, like in order to start using the Keybase connection, you actually have to go to 4 steps. And the first step is feed by default, and this is actually like on Keybase, you need to choose a name for the team. So by default, like we're using the name of your hive to identify the team. And then we have some options that are actually very aware of what is happening. So like first you need to download the Keybase into your machine. And then you need, to do the process about creating a Keybase account. And once you have everything sorted out, like this option is going to become available for you. And once you click on it, you will notice at the left side that we have a background process that is actually working right now. And this is pretty much creating everything that we need on Keybase in order to store our files over there and, do that sync that Colin was just talking about right now. And yeah, the process is actually finishing and the process is actually done already. So yeah, like now all our
Do you want to
content,
show the files in the file system, please?
yeah, let me see if I can actually go the HoloHive 20. Well, I have the HoloHive 2020 over here. This is related to the Hive config, but this is over here. Yeah, the directory of how the content looks like. Media is like, like where your images will go. but documents are like the documents that are actually synced on Keybase right now. And this is pretty much the document that I created. It's called Holo. So yeah, here is the JSON file that came as a result of that, like of the sync. And what you are seeing here is a copy of the master file that you actually have in your Hive. And yeah, like once I open it, you can see everything on the JSON file. Something that I forgot to mention earlier is that we built our editor using Slate.js. So yeah, it's also open source. And yeah, like if you're already familiar with it, it's going to be really easy for you to jumpstart and start, creating new stuff using the home publisher. But yeah, now that we actually see that our stuff is on Keybase, what I like about it is like, if for some reason, like you have to, like like your machine gets corrupted and you have to start over again. Like you can just sync your Hive that you already have on your Keybase account, and you are pretty much going to recover everything. So yeah, that is one nice feat that you can rely on when it comes to Keybase. But there is more to it, and that is something that I might going to show next. So yeah, like I'm actually add more context about this, but before doing that, I would like to do something first. So yeah, like now that we have the home publisher on Keybase for Teams, like yeah, I would like to look at Gatsby.js. So yeah, like you might think about Gatsby if you haven't looked at it or seen it before, like like React on steroids, you might call it. Like it's really nice to use. Yeah, like we are using it in order to in order to deploy your content into a website. So yeah, like in order to use Gatsby over here is really easy. Like everything is actually in the palm of a button. So yeah, the only thing that you actually need to do is to press over here, and yeah, the process is going to start. And what the process is doing right now in the background is like it's cloning Gatsby into your Hive, and then yeah, like it's going to install like all the dependencies and everything that it's going to need, set up absolutely everything. So once you publish a document, what it does is like it compiles Gatsby with the new documents and deploy it as well from the home app into your host. In this case, we are using Keybase, but of course, like we are already considering and have planned on working with more implementations, like deploy to Holo, deploy to Netley, and deploy like pretty much, like to any web host that you might have. But we decided to use Keybase right now because like it's actually a way for you to see like how connections can talk with each other. Because if you are looking at things right now, the three connections themselves, the home publisher, the Keybase for Team, and Gatsby, all of them are coexisting and interacting with the Hive and the three of them together. So it's like that kind of ecosystem that we have been trying to build. Yeah, like we really look forward that developers as well, like, like just like Holochain with the ideas, the sums, that yeah, like other applications could start using the same sums, and like you don't have to build things over. Like yeah, we would like to do the same. And if there is a connection that already does something and has the APIs that other connections can use, so why not? Yeah, I would like to see like, yep.
What Pedro is saying is super important. Is the idea that you have your stories and media living within your Hive, and then you can actually choose where they're hosted, and you can always kind of replicate them across different services. So you're not beholden to the terms and conditions of a singular platform. You always have your stories and media living securely offline, locally on your device, or encrypted securely on a service. So you have this multitude of choices, this freedom to choose where it lives.
Yep. So I might just talk a bit about how those three things that we just looked at tie into the basically like the Holo and Holochain rollout. So what Gatsby is actually generating is static HTML assets. So it's taking that raw JSON file that we just had up, and it's turning that into an HTML file that can be served on any web service. So they will be pushed up to the Holo ports. So as soon as the Holo ports can do web hosting, we can have Gatsby generating content from the JSON data and sitting on Holo ports. That JSON data, do you want to pull that up again? It's just currently sitting in
Yeah, yeah,
Keybase.
yeah. This one.
So there's actually a Holochain WASM that accepts the same content, and there's an I won't call it an authentication scheme, but it's basically a proof of provenance that we developed that ties a secure timestamp using the Roughtime protocol, which is, I guess, popularized by Cloudflare, which is the same provider that Holo uses, and Google as well, to give you secure timestamps, along with JWT tokens that are managed by the Keybase identity solution at the moment, but in the future will come from Holo, like the deep key solutions, and basically wraps that up with a hash of the content and the keys on the device to create a little verifiable chunk that goes along with the content. So that chunk of device plus the content hash plus the secure time plus the JWT goes alongside the content in an encrypted form into the Holochain application. And then what that allows us to do is say, rather than having this content sitting on Keybase's server, it's the same level of encryption that Keybase uses, but distributed across a Holochain DHT. So at that point, using the same internal download process that Pedro was just showing, which downloads various binaries, such as the Gatsby binary, and then installs that into the Electron app, we can have the Holochain binary sitting there in the application. So that allows us to have the content shared between everyone who's an author. And then we'll have the content that's shared generating the static website that is Gatsby that gets deployed to the Holo web hosting. So that gives us shared content on the DHT without the need for Keybase's servers or any servers other than the Holo ports for the web hosting for all the public content. So everything we've showed you up to this point has just focused on identity and content management, and also the actual generation of public content. And then if you go back to the connections, you'll see there's a couple of things down here for Stripe and AWS, which are really just sort of temporary things that we're doing at the moment to focus on what we want to do for private content, which is when users have a JWT, which is a cryptographic token that establishes their identity, and they come to the public website. If they are authenticated with the JWT that shows that they're a paid subscriber, so for example, at the moment, that would just be they're paid with a credit card and Stripe. In the future, that'll be tied into the HoloFuel system for a paywall. Then it releases encrypted content from that DHT through a data availability layer, which at the moment is just basically any conductor running that can expose a web interface to the running DHT, which in the short term we'll be running that, but longer term we really want to be pushing this level of content availability off onto the Holo systems and getting it off Amazon, because that's the point, to get it off Amazon, and also out of Keybase as well, getting into the more decentralized setup. And then basically what we need at that point is just a way to decrypt the content on a per user basis, because you can actually set up encryption which is for a specific person, and we can target it to a particular availability service. So at the moment, again, that's living on AWS because it's just there for availability. So what ends up happening is in the short term is still an improvement over the status quo, because the content is all authoritatively living on the user's machines who are creating it, and then it's not copied into a database running in a server somewhere. The server is basically just a proxy for the content, and then there's a decryption scheme for anyone who has access to it, basically. So once we can remove the server layer, then we don't need to jump through as many hoops with the encryption layer, because we can use access levels at like the network level, like membranes there in the Holy Chain. It could still be there as an option, but like users can start opting into things like Holofuel for paywall and everything else. And that way, even though we've got public websites presented to the user, all the private content sits behind this encryption and access scheme. And it's really just about availability of the data and authentication and getting access to that content. And then because we've got incoming requests into our system from the users that are looking at private content, we can also get essentially signed access receipts synced back to the user's machine. So in the future, instead of having Google Analytics, where all of your analytics content is going into Google, and then they just have a giant warehouse and they know what everybody's doing, we can have tiny little like signed JSON files coming back into your machine, and any modern hardware has got many gigabytes or even terabytes of storage space. You're not going to fill up, like your average blog is not going to fill up that or even come close to filling that up. So you're getting signed access logs of everything that's coming in. So if you've got sensitive, if you're sharing private content, private newsletter, or maybe like songs if you're a musician, or artwork or anything like that, and you want to know who's actually seen it, you're going to get signed receipts of everyone who's seen it coming back in the other way of these people that you're targeting. So you can build a much closer direct relationship between you authoring the content and actually ending up in the people that are viewing the content, and then back the other way you can actually see who's been viewing it and doing what, and
who's created it. So it works the other way too, right? Which is super exciting, because if
Yes.
every media or news article or journalistic piece that you wanted to verify the authenticity, and it made sense in that context, you can actually see who was creating this using their crypto signature, their key tied to an actual identity or person.
Right. So that initial chunk of the time plus the identity plus the device plus the content hash that we're putting against all the content, that little proof, if you go and take some content from someone and then you put it somewhere else, well, there's this shared like original proof of like when and where that came from floating around on the DHT. And that's also on a slight side technical note, that's our strategy for migration path in the future. So if we write a new DHT, for anyone who's worked with Holochain before, you know that different WASMs give you different networks. So when we want to do an upgrade, we essentially use these provenance proofs as a way to replay the content back into the new DHT, because we're relying on that time and identity proof for the platform agnostic provenance of the content, which can replay into different Holochain WASMs, which all have their own concept of what provenance means, but it's specific to that DHT. So we kind of have like a higher level overarching idea of when things were created that we can use to share things between different systems and different migration paths and things like that. And also, I mean, it'd be lovely to in the future have a dashboard where, you know, you could upload something and it would come back with like a green tick and say like, yep, that's a valid proof. Like that person created that thing at that time. They're not lying to you, and just really easily be able to do that with all kinds of content, because yeah, it's tracking who did what when is really difficult in a general problem. And being able to do all of that without like a third-party service, like an expensive provider or like a blockchain service or something like that, like just being able to manage all of this yourself on your laptop in like a relatively straightforward way. Yeah, like we're hoping people are into it and find that useful. Well, expecting, not hoping, we're expecting.
And just to touch on something that David was talking about earlier is as you can see, like giving people the choice of what services they want to use and what they want to allow. It's a bridge to the legacy world as well as to this new P2P world. And so we're not kind of, we have our own ideas about what a great pattern is, but we're also not forcing that on anyone that uses it. So you can still use regular Stripe payments or AWS if you choose to, or you can use HoloFuel and Holochain and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is that it's complementary to all these other services as well.
Definitely mix and match. Yeah, like you're welcome to bring your own Gatsby theme, use Keybase for login if that's what you want, because your friends are all on Twitter, and then have your backups on Holochain. Like do it however you want, really. And also each of these connections, there's an underlying API that we're developing. So it's not just that it's open source, it's actually that it's designed to be extensible. So there's extension points for these things that make sense. So if you want to build I don't know if you wanted to do like a backup service to IPFS, I guess you could have, there's some events that get triggered. So all the outgoing data syncing, all the incoming data syncing, how to handle those two things, and then you can write your own plugin. So it's intended to be a bit of an ecosystem approach as well, to try and bring as many of these things to interconnect. So the more different systems that are sitting alongside each other, hopefully that's kind of bringing things into Holochain as well, and into Holo, and saying like, well, now I can export my old WordPress site straight into a Holo hosted website through like an import adapter, like the one that Pedro was demoing earlier, for example.
Beautiful. And while we were speaking, I think we even got our story published. So Pedro, you want to go through what happened in the background?
Yeah, we'll explain really quickly what just happened. But yeah, like I decided to buy some time on that. But yeah, once Gatsby was installed and like it finished, installed all the dependencies, I went and published the draft that we had. So like right now, publishing a public story, like one that is actually visible to everyone, is going to trigger Gatsby. So it deploys the the latest history, it deploys all the latest histories that you have into Keybase, and then from Keybase we are mapping it, we're adding a custom CNAME so that you can actually show your own domain. And what I was doing while you guys were talking is I was actually using these records, and this is where things actually get interesting, because if you wanted to use another connection and not necessarily something that was built with Gatsby, but you wanted to use something else, you can do it. Again, the APIs are going to be there, so that is an option that you have. But for now, we went into using Gatsby, and yeah, I will do the demo. And yeah, I did ask one of our our developers to actually set up his own domain so that we can actually see it over here. So yeah, this is essentially what was deployed entirely. We could not use our home domain for this testing because Cloudflare is not playing well with Keybase. Keybase is using LevenCrypt, and they are doing it automatically in the background with the Keybase bot. And yeah, no way that we could make it work. And yeah, there was no documentation or anything that we could follow. So yeah, Cloudflare seems to be an issue even these days. But yeah, to show this is what we deployed. This is the name of the Hive that we just deploy, and this is exactly the same history that I was writing. That kind of history that kind of went a little bit messy. But yeah, like essentially the, you know, like you as the creator, like we will be giving people, just like David Meister mentioned, like, yeah, so that you can, if you want, you can have your own team, and then yeah, like you can customize it. Like ideally, once we have all the connections done, like you will be able to enable the Stripe connection and start accepting payments into your Gatsby website, and everything will be done from the Electron app, that as we have seen it here. So yeah, like it's an interesting concept that, yeah, like you won't have to be going somewhere or somewhere else. Like you can do absolutely everything into your Hive. And yeah, like if you wanted, for example, like to deploy to many different places, like you can do it from your Hive. Yeah, that is one of the advantages of having a place where you can, yeah, pretty much publish anywhere in the world. But yeah, that was the quick demo for the Gatsby deployment. And yeah, I'm not sure if you guys wanted me to do something else to share from here.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks, Pedro. And I guess where all that's leading, David, is, so we're talking about stewardship. So you've got your Hive and you've got that natural pattern. It's offline first. You add in the connections, you choose what you want to allow, you choose who you want to work with, and all of that. You've got the built-in resiliency. And then you can set up your own domain, you can set up your own Gatsby website, you can have it peer-to-peer hosted if you want, or a variety of different options and Holochain. You can have it shared in a peer-to-peer manner with one person if it's something that's widely important and you just want to have an unclosable carrier, or you can share it to your subscription base or publicly. And basically, you know, you can get paid for your content, you can, you know, set up your newsletter, you can set up a paid blog, you can start a business. And further down the line, we'll have different forms of media, like, you know, video and podcasting and things like that as well. But the idea is that this is, you know, this Hive is your creation, and it's offline first. And from that point, you choose your own journey, and you can start making money and you know, on the terms that you want. And yeah, and then, you know, you invite people into your Hive, and, you know, you've got your own way to communicate directly with your audience through an unenclosable carrier.
Incredible, guys. I'm blown away. So the intention is to do this regularly with the sort of these core projects that have been, you know, around the Holochain ecosystem for a couple of years. Have like David M here, one of the most influential, talented Holochain devs. David, I don't know how to describe it. So amazing, brilliant.
Peer-to-peer wizards.
Yeah, peer-to-peer wizards, indeed. So I'm looking forward to seeing progress in 2-3 months' time. Is there anything, Nick or the team, you want want the audience to look out for in the next little while, or anything you want everybody to do?
Yeah, so August 19, we're releasing this, so it'll be ready to work and start playing with, and, you know, you can sign up and you know, we'll have all of what you just saw into a bundled package that you can start operating and using, and it's ready to go. Holochain and you know, earning money and set up your own newsletter and all that jazz. So it'll be ready to go in a month.
Wow. And is there anyone, like, have you got an idea on who you want your first users to be, or anything special you want to have happen on the platform, or that we can imagine and make real? Or is it just whatever happens?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some people that we're talking to, and you know, just different writers and journalists, and you know, people that have their own private newsletters and that kind of thing. We'll start sharing that. But yeah, I mean, we're looking for people that are interested and that want to be kind of part of the first wave and start, you know, creating this ecosystem with us, you know, because it's going to be a joint effort, and you know, we want to thrive with people. You know, it's time for us to get out of our own little pigeonhole and, you know, and start playing with others and that kind of thing. So, you know, if this is of interest, people get in contact, and away we go.
And also any developers who are keen to start toying too. You know, the Electron app itself is open source, and so there's, you know, lots of that pattern for making connections is something we're excited about. See what connections people want. It's a big part of that agent centricity. There's maybe services and platforms that people like to use or want to use, and we want to encourage and engender people to use them or create them. So we have that two sides. We have the people who are actually using it maybe to publish their stories, and then also the developers on the other side.
Okay, amazing. Well, I just wanted, Pedro, thank you so much, like the way you lit up just at the start of the demo there, and for sharing the excitement, and Colin, some of the wisdom. Thank you. I really appreciated that. And Nick, some of the stories. I love those stories. And David as well. There's the ability to, I don't know how you do it, the ability to see into these different worlds and make these patterns and connections possible. So guys, it's just been total inspiration. Thank you all very, very, very much.
Thanks, David. Likewise.
Yeah, thanks for having us, David.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was the first ecosystem session. Thank you so much for the Hum Hive team, and thanks everyone for watching, and look forward to the next one. All right, take care.